All right, everybody, welcome back for our third episode in the series of Animal Crossing Teaches the Bill of Rights. The past couple days, we've been looking at how the Bill of Rights protects our fundamental freedoms of expression, which include religion, speech, press, assembly, and petition. And we looked at how those ideas are fundamentally tied to the idea of democracy and how we rely on those to be a check on the government. If you're just joining us for the first time, I do recommend going back to one of our older videos, but if you've seen them, then you know that this is Ranger and Tom Nook. Now, Tom Nook is sort of the head honcho in charge, and Ranger's his right-hand man enforcing many of the laws that Tom Nook seeks to implement. If we remember, Tom Nook is sort of the overarching vision of tyranny on the island. He has control over the economy. He has control over infrastructure. Now, Tom Nook also has many rules he seeks to enforce in the island using Ranger. If villagers break these rules, he'll throw them in jail. And while that might seem like a good thing, remember, there's always a constant battle between individual liberty and order. And if Tom Nook can throw anybody in prison anytime he wants, that is going to tip the scales way far right into order, which the Founding Fathers anticipated. Remember, they fought a revolution to avoid tyranny. And if order is the only objective of the government, then obviously that's the avenue that they're going to pursue. So in anticipation of this, when the founders crafted the Bill of Rights, they included several key provisions. These provisions are really steps to arrest somebody. Go back to the idea of John Locke's life, liberty, and property. And if the government wants to take those rights away, they need to follow a set of procedures. They do this because it needs to be equal for everybody. We don't want the government discriminating against particular individuals when it comes to the justice system. So today we're going to be looking at how the key amendments of the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendments make up the idea of procedural due process and what law enforcement officials have to do if they want to arrest somebody and thus take away their life, liberty, and property, the natural rights. So let's get the ball rolling by looking at Ranger. Ranger, the law enforcement agent on the island, has heard that there's some unfortunate substances going around that are, well, not treating the residents so well. He finds out that they're turnips. He's able to find out the person that's distributing the turnips on the island and is able to make an arrest. Ranger, being the good agent that he is, continues his search by canvassing for witnesses. He notices a sketchy character in the background and goes to search their home. And it's his lucky day. He hit the jackpot. Ranger finds plenty of evidence and believes that he has found a guilty criminal. He heads back to the town center and gives the criminal a good shellacking for his crime.
He needs some milk.
So at the end of the day, Ranger returns back to the station, happy with his performance. Tom Nook is ecstatic because another criminal is behind bars and people will respect his authority on the island. Right? Wrong. Unfortunately for Ranger, he violated the Bill of Rights at almost every step of the way during his investigation into the turnips. He started off all right because he was able to make an arrest with cold, hard evidence which gave him probable cause, which is the standard that police officers are held to in order to obtain a warrant for arrest of a suspected criminal or to be issued a warrant by a judge for permission to search someone's property and seize it. Because Ranger was able to see the transaction of turnips, he probably won't need a warrant for a judge to make this arrest. But that idea is not going to hold up, for when he looked at Shep and said he was looking sketchy, that's far from probable cause for a search. And then when he entered his house without a warrant, he made a big mistake. According to the 4th Amendment, Shep is protected from an unreasonable search and seizure. If the judge does not give Ranger written permission to search his home in the form of a warrant, the search is unreasonable. Even more unfortunate for Ranger was that his hunch was right. Shep was actively participating in the turnip trade. Sadly, because the seizure of Shep's turnips was illegal, the evidence will be thrown out by a judge in court. This is known as the exclusionary rule, which we get from the case of Mapp v. Ohio. Lastly, sneaking up on Shep and hitting him with a net is not going to fly. If you want to arrest somebody, they must have their rights read to them, otherwise known as being Mirandized. The Miranda rights spell out the procedures of due process for the accused, including the right to remain silent from the 5th Amendment and the right to an attorney in the 6th Amendment. Moreover, whacking the criminal accused with a net is also a violation of their rights. Punishment should not be dealt in that way. Instead, they should be going through a court of law and thus proceeding, if arrested and imprisoned, to be punished without cruel and unusual methods of punishment. So just to review, procedural due process starts with the Fourth Amendment. If the police want to get evidence from you, they need to do things through a reasonable search or seizure. That means having probable cause, obtaining a warrant or permission for a judge in all situations that apply. When you are arrested, you are not required to talk to the police, and in fact, you have the right to remain silent. The Fifth Amendment also protects that you have a right to a grand jury, you will not be tried twice for the same case, and that your life, liberty, and property shall not be taken unless through due process. The Sixth Amendment protects the right to a speedy trial where you'll have a jury of your peers, you'll be able to confront witnesses that are testifying against you, have witnesses backing your side of the story up, and most importantly, having the right to legal representation through an attorney. And last but not least, the Eighth Amendment, which protects the idea that your punishment should fit the crime. That includes no cruel and unusual punishment and setting a bail that's fair. Now, after hearing that he violated almost the entire Bill of Rights, you can imagine that Ranger was pretty sad. He spent most of the night conversing with his snapping turtle, really somberly reliving the entire event. That led him to not be able to sleep so well that night, and so he decided to get up and go for a walk in his plain clothes. As he was out, he saw a shooting star and wished for a second chance to be able to redeem himself and actually carry out due process the correct way. Miraculously, Isabel mentioned on the announcements that there was fake artwork circulating throughout the island, and he knew he had to step up to the task, so Ranger got ready and prepared to take on this new criminal. After receiving a crash course from Blathers the Owl on how to inspect art for authenticity, he went to confront the criminal. He soon realized that this character was pretty shady, offering him discounts at every single step and trying to get him to buy regardless of the quality of the product. Ranger stepped up to his first painting, the scary drawing, and began interpreting using the skills he learned from Blathers. He then knew what he had to do. He immediately called the judge, asking for a warrant, realizing that he had probable cause, seeing the distinct differences between the fake painting and the authentic painting in their eyebrows. After receiving the warrant for arrest from the judge and making a plan with his good friend Larry, Ranger set up a sting operation, and as Larry Mirandized Red, Ranger went in for the... Oh God, Ranger, no, what are you doing? No, 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 no! He has rights, you gotta remember he's gotta go to trial! Okay, so Ranger didn't attack him, but one thing is still kind of confusing we gotta clear up. Red had to give all his money back and he's kind of broke at the moment. The real question is, does Red still get the right to an attorney even if he's broke? Well, we gotta look into the real Supreme Court to round this out. And we're gonna look at the case of Clarence Gideon. Gideon was accused of breaking into a pool hall stealing some money. He was tried and convicted, but he was denied an attorney. So when he was in jail, he studied up on the law, and he discovered that his Sixth Amendment rights were being violated. Again, the Sixth Amendment includes the right to an attorney. So he filed for a petition for a writ of certiorari for the Supreme Court to hear his case, and after 4 judges or more agreed to hear his case, he made it up to the Supreme Court. They said that they had to retry his case, and after an hour of redeliberation, it was deemed that he was free. This case really does just go to show you how important it is that we have a right to an attorney. And even though this kind of stinks for Ranger, as there is a potential for Red to get away after he argues his case. Remember, the founders saw that as a devastating thing to take away someone's life, liberty, or property. That's the whole point of government, to protect it in the first place. Therefore, it's on the government It's their responsibility to prove the guilt of an individual, because if they want to take away someone's life or liberty or property, they better get it right. That's why in America, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. Now let's revisit our journey into the idea of procedural due process. Due process is the idea that the government must follow particular steps when taking away our natural rights of life, liberty, and property. The Fourth Amendment is one key instrument in protecting that because it protects us from unreasonable search and seizure and forces the government to have probable cause and permission for search and seizure through a warrant. The Fifth Amendment protects our right to self-incrimination. You do not have to convict yourself by telling the police that you did something. You don't have to talk to them at all. The Sixth Amendment protects us during prosecution by giving us fair legal representation, a fair and speedy trial, and the entitlement to a jury of our peers. And lastly, the Eighth Amendment protects you after you've been in prison. They make it so that there will be no cruel and unusual punishment.
Oh, he needs some milk.
Let's just hope that Ranger can remember that the next time he wants to smack down somebody in the town center.